Intentional power outages. Think about that for a second. What exactly does that mean? That we are intentionally causing power outages for a reason, a purpose. I want to break this down because what was just said today was this warning shot. And this warning is something that everybody needs to be well aware of. I'm going to break this down and explain how millions of people were impacted because of this, but how millions more will be impacted as a result of what's going on right now. So I'm going to break all this down in just a moment, but all I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. So I wish I didn't have to give you this warning, but I'm going to. Look at this. President Biden says intentional power outages to prevent more fires led to California water shortages. Now, the reason why this is so important is because this is coming. Okay, keep in mind, this is coming a year plus, year and a half later after the massive fires over in Hawaii. Look at this right here. This was reported back in August of 2023. It says Hawaii Power Utility takes responsibility for first fire on Maui, but faults county firefighters. Now we're going to read this in a moment, but first I want you to listen and hear what President Biden had to say. Look at this. It says President Biden said Thursday intentional power outages in the Los Angeles area that were administered in order to prevent more fires from starting were partially to blame for water shortages as officials battled historic wildfires near the city limits. It says in a briefing with administration officials from the White House, Biden said generators were on the way and that he talked to California Governor Gavin Newsom about the water shortages. He explained that utilities were shut off out of the concern about sparking more fires that are devastating neighborhoods in and around Southern California. Goes on to say, what I know from talking to the governor, there are concerns out there that there's also been a water shortage. The fact is the utilities, understandably, shut off power because they are worried the lines that carried energy were going to be blown down and spark additional fires. When it did that, it cut off the ability to generate pumping the water. That's what caused the lack of water in these hydrants. Keep in mind, just this morning, we learned from multiple officials that no, the water wasn't low, it was slow. Okay? Essentially, that it was just too much demand for all the open hydrants. That is what they were saying. So now they're saying that yes, the reason why it was slow isn't because there were too many hydrants, it's because they were trying to run off of generators. Interesting. But again, this is just the beginning. But keep in mind, okay, this is a big deal. What happened in Hawaii? Now I want to show you this. Okay, I want to read a little bit of this to you so that you understand what's going on. Look at this right here. It says Hawaii's electric utility acknowledged its power line started a wildfire in Maui, but faulted county firefighters for declaring the blaze contained and leaving the scene, only to have a second wildfire break out nearby and become the deadliest in the U.S. in more than a century. It says Hawaii Electric Company released a statement Sunday night, and again, this was back in August, it says August 28, 2023, in response to Maui County's lawsuit blaming the utility for failing to shut off power despite exceptionally high winds and dry conditions. Hawaii Electric called the complaint factually and legally irresponsible. Okay. So here's where we're at. Right now, there's a lot of discussions and concerns that this is something that's going to progress. I said this before. I said this 2 days ago, that this was something that we need to be watching. We need to be well aware of it because this is going to spread. This fire in Los Angeles County is not contained, but the policies, okay, the issues, the state, the mayor, the governor, everybody is looking at this. There's going to be changes. There will be a lot of changes. But here's the reason I bring this up. And keep in mind, as of right now, Look at this. The economic loss from the wildfire could top $50 billion, making it one of the costliest U.S. natural disasters. This is all the wildfires in Los Angeles, okay? All the fires that are going on right now, which there's still several. It's not just the Palisades fire. I said this yesterday. I said there was initial reports, and I even talked about this on TikTok, and I said that there are reports that we are about to see about $10 billion in economic loss. No, it's going to be bigger. I said there were other reports that said anywhere from 12 to 15. It's going to be bigger. $50 billion as of right now. There's entire neighborhoods that are gone. But guess what? Look at this. Here's the real harsh reality. Victims of the Pacific Palisades fire face another harsh reality. No insurance to rebuild. Not only do many people not have insurance because they were cut off, weeks or even months ago, some even, last year. But here's the reason why this is going to be almost impossible to rebuild. Getting permits to build takes a long time in California. Long time. Okay? I have so many friends that moved to California, start doing extremely well. Okay? Created businesses, did all this stuff, right? Had a lot of money. They tried to build their dream home, and it took years. Some of whom haven't even started building because there's so many permits and hoops they have to jump through. It's just absolutely insane. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, I want to keep reading this to you. Okay? President Biden said he had that the Cal Fire, the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, is bringing in generators to help with the shortage of water coming out of the hydrants. Again, that is where things were at. That when President Biden talked to Governor Gavin Newsom, that they're going to bring in generators to help pump the water through, right? Help you use those pumps to really push the water. The problem is it just took too long. It says President-elect Trump has criticized the water shortage in statements on Truth Social, saying earlier today that Gavin Newsom should immediately go to Northern California and open up the main water, okay? Because there's not enough. Keep in mind, from the information that we're getting initially, everybody was blaming other people. The fire departments were blaming the city. The city was blaming the people. Even Governor Gavin Newsom, okay, who in an interview right there on the street in front of burned down homes says that, well, it's kind of up to the people, right? Like the people were the ones that caused this, right? Because they put their houses in the wrong spot. Yeah, they built their houses in California, right? Great weather. But this is what we get. Now, I bring this to your attention for one main reason. This is why I'm giving you this warning. President Biden said, okay, and again, this isn't just from President Biden. This is also from the governor. This is also from Hawaii Electric, okay, is that the facts are this, that the utility company understandably shut off power because they're worried the lines that carried energy were going to be blown down and spark additional fires. So, when Texas, for example, is hit with ice storms, right? They warn the residents that this is coming, to be prepared, because if the ice storms bring down the power lines, there's going to be no power. What happens when now we start to see all these different natural disasters? And what happens when these utility companies decide, you know what? I don't want the liability. So what we're going to decide to do is we are just going to voluntarily, intentionally create a power outage. We're just going to shut power down to the entire city. What happens when that goes on over in Florida for a hurricane? Because the insurance companies, right? Now, this is Florida, right? Florida is not California. But what happens in, let's say, Washington State? We get too much snow. So we're just going to shut off power just to make sure the snow or ice or freezing rain doesn't pull down the power lines and cause a potential fire, right? Disaster. Just shut it off. Or in the Midwest where there's tornadoes. We're just going to shut it off, right? You're not going to get any power, right? You're going to have to live by candlelight for a little bit. What happens then? That now starts to open up the discussions. And again, I bring this up because this is exactly what somebody asked me. Okay, is how can a government, how can a state, city, utility company just decide, you know what, we are just going to shut off power. Because now what does that do? That opens up the discussion is, if they decided to keep the power running through those lines, could that have potentially prevented all these homes from burning? There's currently 5 people, 5, that have lost their life. But based off of reports that I was listening to just a short while ago, they are already calling in cadaver dogs because they believe the amount of loss of life, they can't even see it yet. Because it's not like people are underneath the burnt buildings and people are going through and like, hey, is this person here? They're not doing that yet. They aren't doing it. But cadaver dogs may be responsible for going to check every single one of these properties in case there's somebody still there. Because keep in mind, many people said they would not leave. They weren't going to go anywhere. They were going to stay. They were going to protect their home because that was all they had. And I talked about this the other day. I said that with all these people not having insurance, this was all they had. People were going to stay in their homes, do whatever they can, pour water from a cup if they needed to. I saw people walking garbage cans up the street and trying to dump the garbage cans on the fire of some of their friends or relatives' homes. I saw a lady carrying a pot full of water to dump it on the front of a garage. Okay, it probably didn't do much, but that was all she could do, right? This is why it's an interesting turn of events. That President Biden said intentional power outages is what likely led to these water shortages. And those water shortages likely led to all this destruction, which is still going on. So we're going to see what happens, but I just wanted to explain what is going on at this time. Again, that is what we know as of today. So thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I will see you guys on the next one.